What did we come up with for NOI? 70,000, very good. You have to remember that when you're getting that the gross rents, and you're taking the vacancies, but you're also adding the other income from laundry and all that stuff. So that's included in that number. So it's 164,000 minus the gross operating expenses, and you come up with $70,000. How do we do with the cap rates? It's about an 8 cap, or just under a 9 cap, actually. And cash on cash? Yeah. Right, just about 13% on the cash and cash. Sure, for the cash on cash one? Pre-tax cash flow, though, you come up with a $20,800 is the number I came up with, and I got that from it's your NOI basically minus your mortgage payment. That's going to be your cash flow. That's what you're actually going to cash flow. So after all your payments, it's going to be $20,800 of cash flow, and you divide that by the total cash invested, and that was the $158,000 that you had to put down plus your closing costs. So you do that, and it comes out just about 13%. Now, I put on this one. This one is checking a value play of rents are low by $50. So I'll just go over this, and you can follow along with me. If you were to raise the rents on this, and by the way, just FYI, the majority of the deals you get, the broker's going to tell you rents are low, okay? So before you take this into heart, you really need to check out to make sure the rents truly are low. And if this one is truly low by 50, the broker's telling you, oh, they're low by $300. So just keep that in mind. But it does happen, and it's also another one of the value plays that does not happen overnight. It takes time to raise those rents up to market. You can't just go in there and say, all right, everybody, give me $50 more. You have to wait for the leases to go and make sure it'll stick. So what you do is you take your gross scheduled income is going to increase by $50 times the number of units. 40 units comes to $24,000 times 12, because that's a monthly $50. So it comes out to $24,000 increase in your gross scheduled income, which comes out to $204,000. Everybody see that? All right, gross scheduled income currently $180,000. We're saying the rents are low by $50. So you take, because gross scheduled income is based on 100% occupancy. Everything is occupied and paying. So what you're doing is you're adding $50 times 40 because there's 40 units. And then you have to multiply that times 12 because there's 12 months in a year. $204,000 is what that brings your gross scheduled income. And then it's a typo underneath where it says use 9,000 for vacancy. We're going to just keep it, the rest of the numbers were the same. So we subtract from $204,000, we subtract $19,000 for vacancy. We add $3,000 for income, and that gives us $188,000 now for our effective gross income. And once you have your gross rent minus your gross operating expenses, we've got the $188 minus the expenses of $94,000. That gives us a new NOI of $94,000. Yes. Right. This is, again, we're not going, you're right, the vacancy does change if you were to do that, but we're not, this is, again, just working with the numbers. But you are absolutely right. If you're going to increase the rents, then that $19,000, that number is going to change too. But we're just showing what this is very simply.
So Tim,
Yes.
did you say that this rent was 240 or 204?
24,000, but you add that to the 180, 204 is your total. Do you get that? No. Yeah. 24,000, right? But you have to. That's an increase in rent, so you're adding it to the 180,000 that you already have. Okay, so that's 204,000. Now we're taking our new NOI that we came up with of 94,000, divide that by the sales price, and now we're no longer an 8 cap, we're a 12 cap. Much nicer. And again, we just take the pre-tax cash flow, which now comes up to $44,800, divided by the total cash invested, 158. And now you've got a 28 cash on cash. That's an easy one to find investors for. Okay, so these value plays, and that's just a $50 increase, so, and 40 units. All right, any questions on that I can't answer? I wish Ed was here because, you know, I do a lot of the stuff with Ed, and he's unbelievable. I mean, the numbers, I just sit there and shake as, you know, he's saying, change this number, change that number, and we'll do this and do that. I say, oh, okay. And I'm still putting it in the analyzer, and he's got an answer for me already. Okay. And you can check me on these answers because, again, she told me 2 days ago, and I literally did these last night. So there could be an error. I came up with an NOI of 94,000, a cap rate of 12, and a cash on cash of 28%. All right, let's do the last one, which this one really gets into a little more of the nitty-gritty, something that you're really going to get. This is on page 54, 55, I believe. Yeah. And what I was trying to show on this one is what are actual numbers. And a lot of times, like Sue said, even if they are 12-month trailing numbers, not pro forma per se, these are right off the numbers, there are some people who scrub the books. And so they're going to try to get their expenses, and they're not going to report them. They're going to put them other places where they won't show up, maybe under CapEx or something like that. And so some of the numbers will be beyond what would be called normal. So I don't believe Sue went over the, hang on a second, I gotta find that page. There it is, page 41. These are industry averages. They're also called rules of thumb, but these are your friends, and they keep you safe, and they also can really find you deals. This is how Sue and Ed have found quite a number of deals. What you have, I'm generalizing, but a lot of the times if it's through an owner who's been there a long time, they're the ones going to be scrubbing the books, trying to make it look like it's better than it is. But then you have special servicers who are hammering it to the banks. So you're going to have numbers that are higher than they should be. These are the gold mines. But when you say use actual numbers, you can run it for better than that. And if you don't correct for that, you are going to have numbers that don't work or appear not to work. So the actual number in that case is too high. You can reduce that. And that's where you find the gold mines, because that's what you're going to bring to your investors. This is what I can really run it for. These guys have been hammering it. The special servicers have been hammering the banks, and so their expenses are too high. And I'm protecting myself and knowing these numbers through the industry averages. So on this one, the purchase price $6,100,000, 251 units. Cash required, this is going to be your, includes your down payment. This is what you're going to use for your cash and cash calculation, $1,891,000. And on these incomes, $1,807,000, the vacancy $353,802, concession $25,000, and you're going to need to get me a total rental income. Other income is in there, so you add that on there. Expenses, taxes. On taxes, you're always going to want to use real numbers. Call up the assessor if you have to. Make sure you have a real number in there. Insurance, you can usually get a real number. It's kind of hard to scrub those, but call around. Repairs and maintenance. Very often you'll find these numbers skewed, and this is where they can try to scrub the books or charge too much, depending on what you're doing or what they're doing. Again, what I want you to do on these numbers is look at these numbers, see if they're in line with the industry averages, and if they're not, you're going to be using your own numbers in there to see what's going on. Again, management 4%, that one is standard. Marketing $12,000. Utilities, always use real numbers for utilities, and can't scrub those. You just look at your bills from the 12-month trailing. Those numbers will be on there. Contract services, what I've found very often on contract services, and these are the things that you're contracting out, lawn mowing, pool service, anything like that. Very often it's included in your repairs and maintenance. But there is, and on Sue's analyzer it's in there, they're separate from repairs and maintenance. So when you're using your industry averages or your rules of thumb, you have to add them together if they are added together in this one. So in other words, if repair and maintenance is $100,000 and you're supposed to have, I'm just making up numbers here, but $25,000 for contract services, a lot of times they're going to take those contract services and put them into the maintenance number. So what you'd really need is to add those two together and come up with $125,000 so that you're in line. I know it's a little bit confusing, but the part that gets confusing is that the repairs and the maintenance and the contract services are separate. So when you're doing the rules of thumb, you have a number for repairs and maintenance, and get that in there, and then you need another number for contract services. Now, if they put them together, then you have to add your rule of thumb for contract services, even though there is no number. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? So make sure you have both numbers in your figuring. Another thing that also happens is on the analyzer. It has certain numbers that you're going to put in there. And sometimes on your expenses, the way they put them, they have numbers that doesn't make sense in there. They call it something totally different. And if you're not careful, you'll go right by them, and you won't include those in your expense numbers. So what I do is I go through everything. I mean, some of these things you're going to get are 4 pages long on expenses with a whole bunch of stuff in there. So I just check off the total that they have in there. I make sure I've included it in there, or else you'll go over it because it doesn't fit in cleanly. If it doesn't fit in cleanly, just make sure it's in there, or else you're going to get in trouble. So getting back to this, just go through those, and also go back to 41. Well, you know what I'd like to do? Just do the regular numbers. I got their numbers and your numbers and Y. Just do your numbers, and we'll go through their numbers, and we'll go through your numbers and Y, and that way we can talk it over, because with the industry averages, there's a range, so everybody will have a different number. But I'll explain quickly how we go through them. But this is a good one that's going to have all the numbers in it. And do their numbers and get me a cash on cash, a cap rate. You don't have to get a price per unit. It's $24,302. But what I wanted to share with you, something that Ed and Sue have done, you would think, how can I change the price per unit? And the only way you would think you could do the price per unit changing it is by reducing the price. Well, they They're in the middle of a deal right now that has 8 burned out units. So they have a price that they threw in there. I'm just going to use a number, $3 million. And they said, at closing, we want $600,000 back to repair those units. So not only did they get that $300,000 off the purchase price, but it was put in there that they're going to do it to fix those units. So now they've just increased the number of units by 8 because those weren't included in the numbers they were using before. Excuse me, before. So it's kind of an ingenious way of, you wouldn't think you could change the price per unit unless you just change the price. But not only are they changing the price per unit, they're getting the money back to fix them, adding units, and reducing the amount of money they have to go in there. So that's a great way to do it. Don't do the occupancy or the economic occupancy on this one. There's not enough difference. I'll just go over that at the end very quickly, but it's very important, the difference between occupancy and economic occupancy. Yes? Yes. Exactly. Concessions, I'm sorry, concessions he was asking about, what are they? Those are different things they give back to renters as a concession, first month free, that type of thing. So those come right off your what you're going to be getting for a rent, so you have to include those. I'll give you 10 minutes to go through those, and then we'll go over your numbers and why. We'll just run through those real quickly, and I'll explain. You'll again see the difference between the numbers you're going to come up with for their numbers and how we can make this a deal that investors will jump on. And just one more thing. This one, I kind of did it both ways, where they're scrubbing some numbers and some numbers they're jamming at home. Most of the times they're either doing it one way or the other. They're scrubbing it. Again, everybody, we have all sorts of people who have different experience here. So I'd really like you to work together, and it's also a good networking thing. So turn around if you can, small groups, and work together, get this done, and I'll be back in 8 minutes.